on.
No new homework, Cameron.
Grab might be easier for you.
And Cameron, we got no new homework. Let's do it.
All right, then, please, as I call your names, just pop on up here to grab your test back. You will notice on your test, I've given you feedback. I've not given you a grade. That is strategic, and we'll talk about why in just a moment. So, these are not the right tests. Where is your guys' test? Who stole my test?
I stole them so you could give me a piece.
Well, you're going to give yourself your grade.
The poster stole your test.
Annie, first time getting my
Will, why are you only one met?
These are them. Yeah, I forgot that I stuck them in the bin. I was getting to that point. Thank you very much, Mr. B.
Mr. Cousin, can we get some ease?
So we'll talk about that in a moment. If I can get Will and Izzy and right there. Mina. By the way, I have a no name, so if you don't get called, that's probably you. Bilal. Naya. Alex B. Catan. Settlers of Catan. Oliver. Or Catton, as some people say. Rachel. Alex. Conan. Alana. Ian. Tyler. Scott. Good work. Zachary. Uvendir. Annie. Piper. The suspense is building, right? Who's the no name? May. Ava. Maybe I made that up. Did everyone get a test back? Maybe I was looking at one of the middle pages and thought it was a no name. Here's what's up. Take a moment to quietly, so without discussion with your neighbor, take a moment to quietly look at my feedback. I have not done an excessive amount of feedback on this because I knew we were going to go over it as a class. You do not have a grade because you are going to assign yourself a grade. We are going to review this. We're going to go quickly through the chapter 2 part, probably spend a little bit more time on the chapter 3 part. Take any questions you guys have. With the other classes, I'll often go just question by question, but if we see the mistakes you made and most of us are good to move on, I sometimes won't talk about a problem. What you need to do right now is honestly assess how you think you did. And this is not a critical thing. Hey, give me your eyes for a second. Let's have a chat first. So you guys want to dig into your test, which is great. So our mastery scale, right? One of the reasons why I love this school is how grades are set up. Exemplary, for me, essentially, in my mind, is like, you might as well teach this next time. You understand it so well, you show your work so well, you are so clear, so concise, you use the vocab words, you're checking all the boxes. That's what exemplary is, like, and beyond, right? So you don't just meet the requirements. That is not exemplary. A is not an, like, what would be an A. That's not exemplary. That's like you did what you're supposed to. Exemplary is above and beyond. So most of us won't be exemplary work because, let's face it, we don't often go above and beyond unless we really like what we're doing. If you really like math, you might be producing exemplary work. Masteries, you met the standards. You showed, not just that you know, but you showed your knowledge of what you were supposed to. You made very minimal errors. The errors that you made were minor mistakes, so maybe like you wrote something down wrong as opposed to like you didn't know what you were doing. You show that you understand the process. Progressing is I need a bit more practice. I maybe made some bigger mistakes. I maybe had some conceptual errors. Maybe I switched up some different rules or concepts or whatever. But I need some more practice before I'm confident that I really know this. And not progressing, I kind of don't love that word. But what it means with not progressing is I'm not moving forward. I'm not really learning this. I'm stuck. I really need help. Okay, so what we're going to do is give 2 different grades, one for the chapter 2 sheet, one for the chapter 3. So I'll give you like probably 3 or 4 minutes, and don't give yourself a grade yet. We'll do that at the end of class. But take a minute to just look over what you missed. And here's the big thing to think about. Now with fresh eyes and some feedback, you realize what you did or what you should have done, and have that like, oh, like the facepalm moment, right? Like, oh, I see what I should have done. Yeah, if you didn't finish, that's okay. But one of the things to realize with that is that kind of says you're pacing, which is some of us take longer to do that. But you need to be like introspective, to use a $5 word there. Could you have answered the questions you didn't get to? And I don't necessarily know that. Right? So not finished are kind of hairy. A lot of times we'll finish during AO or extensions or whatever. Being that this was an earlier chapter test, I'm probably going to have you guys like take it home and finish if you want. Today, we're not writing on the test at all. We're writing on the separate sheet of paper. So take a couple minutes, just inspect what you did and what feedback I gave you. Oh no, the numbers you wrote are wrong. So, I think well, let's find the problem with long division. Huh, what's 40 minus 33? 7, not 6, right? So minor error. So that's minor math mistake. What's funny is you did still find a loop. That's incorrect. I wonder what number. Well, so unreduced fraction that would have made that happen is 3. Crap. We can talk later about this, right? The 54 would be over 99 because the 54 is the 80s or some kind of more complicated fraction. If the number, like if the problem number is circled, it needs your attention. Like I said, I did minimal feedback on this one because we're going to go over it together and I wanted you to analyze it. If the number is circled, it needs your attention, and then I on a lot of them wrote some feedback. So let's dive into this. I think most of us were good on the number line, but I'm going to take just a second with that one. We will take some time on number 2. A lot of us still needed number 2. All right, number 1. Who can tell me the way that we can always determine the length of a jump or a gap on a number line? Alex?
Find the greatest common factor.
I mean, maybe. I'm not. I'd have to test that out. I'm not sure. But I don't know that that would always work, because what if there wasn't a common factor and we still had to figure out a jump? Oliver?
So, kind of what I do is, in this instance, like, if I'm trying to figure out 18. So, what I do is, what's the first line, and then how many sections up is it? So, like, the first line on the number line, and then the next line is 18.
So I think by first line, you're saying the first value that we know. Right, so 18 is the first value that we know. 33 is the only other value that we know. So we know about them. I have a handout sharpener too. We know about them that between them, the whole space we cover, what about it? It's 15. how we determine a jump, if you got this wrong, is the entire distance over the number of gaps or jumps or whatever you're working with. So our distance here is 15. Our number of gaps is 5. Sorry, my 5 looks really bad there. And we get each gap is 3. Most of us were fine on that, and then you fill in each of the tick marks. A lot of us had issues here. It comes down to the classification of which type of variable is it. So in a situation with two things, we got to make some choices. What kind of choices do we have to make? Or what do we have to assign or like name?
Mr. Cavilo in the video yesterday said the independent variable is X and the dependent variable is Y.
But I don't have X and Y labeled here. So I have to choose that.
You have to find the independent variable.
How do I determine which one is the independent variable?
The other one depends on. Yeah.
So, you right now are probably growing more and more independent, where you can make your own dinner, you could get yourself to school, you could maybe even do your own laundry. But back in the days, you were dependent. If you wanted food, you needed to depend on somebody, right? If you wanted clean clothes, you needed to depend on somebody. Which thing here doesn't depend on anybody? Which thing here could care less what the other part of the table is? It's still gonna do its thing. Izzy? Time is independent. Time is essentially always, you will very, very rarely work with a weird situation where time is dependent. Time is independent. You cannot stop it. You cannot make it move forward. It does its own thing, which means people has to be your why, has to be your dependent. Then we make a table, then we make a graph. Now I forget, because I've graded so many of these, I forget which class it was in. So I'm going to think that it maybe wasn't this one, but a couple people had a brain fart and forgot which guys. This is fine. By the way, I need to make sure we say this. Nobody in this room right now should feel bad. I know it sucks when you get something bad and you're like, oh, I made mistakes, I did things wrong. That's expected, right? We're still learning, especially with CPM, we spiral, so we keep revisiting things. Nobody should feel bad. Y'all did pretty good. The mistakes I saw were not that big. And a lot of us, like, we got other crap going on in our life, right? Math isn't the only thing. Get it. Sometimes we have an off day. Sometimes we just write something down wrong. So a couple people misnamed their axes. This one has to be X. It's not a choice. It has to be. This one has to be Y. It's not a choice. It has to be. So a couple people flipped those around, and then their graph was right, except it was flipped around, treated the wrong way. So you got to switch your axes. Some of you put people down here and minutes up here. Yeah. So by the way, that clean sheet of paper that you have, if you have anything wrong, you should be writing the correction on that clean sheet of paper. So I don't think many of us missed number 1.
Wait, are we drawing the...
Yeah, so if you want graph paper, come grab graph paper. But we are going to do our corrections together. Because then there will be a separate, if you want more practice, there will be a separate thing that you can work on independently. X has to be my independent, so it is my time, which in this case is minutes. My Y is people. Your graph has to be labeled. Then we got to choose a scale. What does my X need to go up to? Here. Got to go up to 20. So I can guess check, or I can be mathy about it. I need to get to 20, and I only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 boxes. Ah, gross. Comes out to be like 3, almost. Like, yeah, like, So each one could be about 3, but that doesn't really work with my table, right? I have 5 and 10. So I at least have to make each one 3 or more. Can I choose something more than 3 that makes my life super easy? 5. So if I make this 5, 10, 15, and 20. If we got this incorrect, we are making a new graph right now. What's the max my y-axis needs to go up to? Now hold up, before back up, put your hands on. I moved on too quickly. So I can do this, and it's still pretty good. However, they're kind of tight. The other option, when you decide to just work with what values the table has, if they're equally spaced, what if I make 2 boxes 5, then another 2 boxes 10, then 15, and then 20 out here? I can fit that, and it spreads it out a bit more, makes it a bit easier to work with. Either way would be right. I'm just giving you multiple strategies. My max has to go up to 10 up here somewhere, so I can easily move by 2s and get there. Remembering that my origin has to be 0, 0. No way around it. Has to be 0, 0. And then we just plot our points. X and Y. Out to my X of 5, up to my Y of 1, so not very high. Right there. Out to my X of 10, up to my Y of 3. That's not 3. The other thing to think about when you're choosing independent and dependent variables is which one could I make do something? Can I make time since beginning of game be 20? No, I can't manipulate time. That'd be sweet. Can I make 10 people at the concession stand? Sure. Hey guys, let's all go get snacks. I'm buying. You can make people at the concession stand. You can influence that. You can't influence time. So people depends on time, or all you need to think about is time's independent. Time doesn't care about you. It's going to do its thing.
Time has its own purpose. Time doesn't care about you. No. Time has its own purpose.
I mean, he's been around for a while, so you should have played friends. I think it was one of those, like, they didn't stifle it, and my jokes are bad. They accidentally let it slip out. Any questions on that one? We just had some issues with which axis. No, dude, sit on the chair or stand. You're not sitting up on the counter. 3, I'm going to cover really fast. Who can tell me the 4-letter word, 4-letter words, that we need to find to solve number 3? And actually, there's 2 4-letter words we could use. So be really careful. Well, a unit rate. We're not talking about bad words. Come on, I'm a good kid. That's what you think. Age is a number. I mean, of course, that's obvious. Age is a number. What? Yeah. I mean, I didn't say just a number. It's a good identifier for certain things. All right, Bilal. How do I find a unit rate? And here, what unit rate do I want? Because we talked about yesterday, rate, or maybe a couple days ago, rate is anything that involves what word? Per. Right? Rate involves so. Do we want pages per minute or minutes per page? We have this choice. It's up to us. What do you want, Bilal? Minutes on top is always easier. So I'm going to do minutes per page, or time on top is always easier. So we set up 18 minutes over 12 pages. And we find out each page takes 1.5 minutes. What I'm about to do is wrong. Do not write it. What I'm about to do is wrong. The most common mistake I saw, 12 pages equals 18 minutes. When I bump up to 22 pages, I'm adding 10, so it must just take 28 minutes. Now, don't, like, snicker or anything. Like, that has a point where reasoning like that would make sense. But in this situation, that kind of reasoning doesn't make sense. because my pages and my time are not equivalent. When one changes, the other can't change the same way. It's just not allowed. It doesn't work. So you got to analyze, does this work in this situation? There are some times when that reasoning would be fine. 1.5 minutes for each page means to find the length or the time 22 pages would take. Do what? Multiply by 22. And we get
33 minutes. A number.
just over a half hour.
Just a little bit.
Now, I love, and this is where it extends from like mastery to exemplary, I love when people have time and they extend this and they say, so if Esme read just a tiny bit faster, she could read this in a half hour. Or like, find your actual answer, but then you can expound upon that with a mathematical thought based around it. Do not be afraid to go beyond the problem. Love going beyond the problem. Questions on that one? The probability question, the main thing that I saw is people just misunderstanding it or forgetting to answer this part of it. So some of you did not see that there were two different questions here. Some of you did not see that it was not green, and you gave me the probability for green, which I kind of let slide. And some of you here gave me the probability of yellow, and then the probability of red. That's okay, I let that slide. But, by the way, the not green is 17/23, but I'm not going to take the time to look at that. Yellow or red, we're going to take just a second to look at that. If it asks an or question, it doesn't care what my result is. Yellow or red, either one is what I want. How many yellow or red tiles are there? I don't care, and I put the groups together. 12. So this becomes 12/23. If you did just yellow, 9/23. Just red, 3/23. Just green, 6/23. Not green, 17/23. Any questions? Okay, like I said, we're going to move a little bit quicker. Perimeter and area, we had some issues on this, and this was somewhat concerning, so I am going to take a moment to talk about this.
What does label mean?
That you did not label.
Oh, I didn't do it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't think I labeled it.
So, I did not have the energy or effort or ink to do this for all papers as I realized what was happening. I need a stamp that I can just ink up and stamp on your papers that says dogs, cats, pizzas, question mark. What did I tell you at the beginning of the year that I will often ask you dogs, cats, pizzas? What activates that? Well, you're just giving just a number. Because if you say, hey man, go pick up 28 from the hardware store. You're like, all right, sweet. Crap, 28 what? Even if a label is not provided, we, because we're smart mathematicians, know that we can plug in a placeholder label of units. So our perimeter is 28 units. I'm going to show us how we get that. Some of us made this way harder than it needs to be. We tried to use formulas. We tried to calculate something.
You count the outside.
Perimeter is what? You can define it for me. We talked about
Something.
Yeah, Annie?
The
Distance around the edge of a figure. This figure being a complex figure because it is not just a rectangle, just a circle, just a triangle. So walk. I walk 3. And then I don't like counting the ones. That's annoying. So then I start to group. I walk 1 there and 2 more there. So that's another 3 through that section. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I'm going to say that side is 5. I start to kind of group my stages. 1, 2, 3. Sure, I'll do that 3. And then, okay, I like that 3. Another 3. When I get all the way around it, I have 28 in total. So if you have a minor mistake, it probably came down to a counting mistake. Alon?
So I got 28 for the perimeter, but you put an X by it.
For perimeter or for area? Or maybe I meant to put a question mark if you don't have a label. Oh, because it's not square. Square units describes area. So thank you for asking about that. That's why. So I didn't circle that question because your numbers are right? So just be careful with your labels. Perimeter is just distance. Is just units, just feet, just inches, just meters, no squares. Area, however, is a squared unit because what is area? Who can tell me how we figure out area? Rachel?
I just counted the blocks.
Counted what about the blocks? Because we just counted the blocks' edges.
I counted how many blocks were inside.
It's how much physical two-dimensional space it takes up. One square is quite literally one square unit or 1 unit squared. It's a square. It's in the name. And then we count them. And we get 27. You could just say U squared. That would be units squared. Just like M squared would be meters squared. Alex?
How I got the area, I just got like split bigger up into different.
Yep.
That's what I did.
So some people did this, and you have a 3 by 5 rectangle, and then you can count. You got a 2 by 6, 1 left over, 5 left over. I love it. Great way to do it. Yep. And you can split it other ways too. You can actually do a bigger sideways rectangle there. Yeah. You could, if you're a good visual mover, move this block over there. Yep. And then you can make a big old rectangle. Any other questions remaining about this one? Because fishies are cool. Fishies are your friends.
Eating pot.
One square. It's like a fireball.
The way that you can be a boss with fraction, decimal, percent conversion comes down to, what does that word mean? Out of 100. Which means whatever I have on top is the percent number. So, well, I start with a fraction. Can I get this over 100 is the question. Yeah, how do I do it? Be careful. Multiply by what? 20 over 20.
Or a giant one of 20.
Right. A giant one of 20 over 20. And we get 60. Hey, guys. That tells me everything else. How do I say this properly? 60 hundredths. Not, be careful, some people put the 6 here. If the 6 is here, that would be 6 hundredths. This is 60 hundredths. Or take off the zeros and just make it 6 tenths. But now that we have 60 over 100, we know it's 60%. The other way we can do that, and I would write this down if you don't have it down, you just move your decimal 2 places to the right. Because, how do you say this? 4 thousandths, right? So if I write that as a fraction, I could write 4 thousandths, but, give me your eyes up here for a second, any number is just over 1, right? At all numbers, we can put over 1. To get this to be over 100, I multiply by 100. That moves my decimal 2 places. We don't write decimal. We don't do this. We don't do that in Phoenix. No, we don't do this in math, mix decimals and fractions. It's bad. But we can, like, think about it. Like, we wouldn't want to give an answer like this. But if it's over 100, that's your percent. Your percent value here is 0.4%. 4 tenths of a percent. This, if you reduce it, if you choose to, is 1 over 2/5. Any percent over 100 will be a number over, well, okay. No, any percent any percent bigger than 100 will be a number bigger than 1, right? 250 over 100 2.5, right? So 2.5. We could do 250 over 100, or 25 over 10, or 5 over 2, or whatever. You could do a mixed number. I accepted a lot of things there. Any questions remaining on that table? You what? Okay.
Why do you always put like 0.4?
Because it's not appropriate to leave that blank. You have to say there is no whole value. We don't just write the point. I will start. Well, they were incorrect. I will start to care about that. I'll tell them to their face. We don't leave that blank because we specifically want to say we have no whole values. Otherwise, it's like your plan book box being blank. And you're like, wait, do I have homework or was there no homework? When we put the 0 there, it's a clarification. There is no whole value. I'm sorry if somebody has misinformed you previously. I will apologize for them. That is incorrect. You should put the 0. It's not like it's wrong, but if you want to be all the way right, we put the 0.
You're like 99.999% correct.
Did we talk about the right versus wrong in here, what mastery really means? So I start to forget because we just had the other class. When I'm going through grading, somebody in the other class said, hey, like, wait, did I get this wrong? I said, well, did you get it all the way right? It's not, mastery isn't really about did I get it wrong. It's did you get it totally right? If you don't get it totally right, you didn't really master. Hey, well, can we sit up? It's kind of being a big distraction to me right now. I just can't focus with that going on because it makes me want to take a nap. All right, moving on. Please put the 0 in front of the decimal. 4/11ths. Don't trust your calculator. If a number takes up the entire screen of your calculator, do not trust the last digit. It rounded. 3 1/4, 6 1/8. What should we do before we try to multiply those? Make them improper. For that, I'm going to go quick on this one. That will become, and I hope Word doesn't become a goofball, 13 over 4 times 49 over 8. Unreduced comes out to be 600.
Hold on.
637.
And then if we reduce,
It's 19.29.
so if you need more help on that, continue. We're going to review some of that process in chapter 3. Yeah, we can break it up and show the area model. So because it said 2 different ways, the other very effective way here, 3 1/4, 6 1/8, and we area model this. We're going to continue to practice this year. So we would get 18 6/4, 3 8, and 1 8, so the 32nd. Then we have to figure out common denominators. So the only reason why I avoid that way is common denominators. I don't like adding fractions. It's a struggle for me.
I don't like fractions in general.
So identify what method you like better. But we needed to show 2 different ways. Now, if you showed this and just stopped, and then showed this and got me, I'd be fine with that. Because if you just kind of are like, yeah, I didn't want to add those fractions, but I knew I could find it another way, that's fine. That's great. Number 9, the value comes out to be. Number 9, the value comes out to be -4, right? Because what do we call it when 2 things cancel out because they're the positive and the negative?
Zero pairs.
No, 2 words. AI.
Additive inverse.
Additive inverse. All right. Look at your chapter 3 test.
Chapter 3.
We pretty much all got this right, but some of your explanations strayed away from, I think, what you were really trying to say. We are dividing by 2. Now, a couple of us extended that and said division by 2 is like cutting in half, so we can do half of, and you made it multiplication. But be careful if all you said was like a keep, change, flip type process. You need to be able to like explain why we did this, why this visually represents it, and how that actually gets 3/8. Because notice what we see here is 6. But when we cut in half and split to 2 people, that gets split up. A couple people actually gave me a wrong answer. You justified your way to get to 6/8. Be careful. So read your answer. We're not going to spend much time on this because you can analyze this answer. Ruben, dear?
I said cut the 3/4. Can you read it? I don't know.
Okay, so you guys can peer edit, talk about those things later if you'd like. So I'm going to keep rolling because we are running out of time pretty dramatically. We talked about a problem just like this in class. Yeah, can you calm down? Just focus. I need 8 more minutes, not you. Okay, thank you. I was trying to let it work itself out with a couple eye glances, but it didn't. Okay. When we have 2 equal distances, take away things that are the same. So what could I take away from both of these? Ruben, dear? Yeah, the 2's, I could wipe out both of those. X's, I could wipe out both of those. So I'm left with, Izzy? Yeah, 2 of my X's equal 8. The X's have to be the same. What are they? 4. Now, there's a lot of ways we can mathematically write that out to justify it. But you can show it visually. You could also rearrange the stuff, and you could have made it look like this. I think a couple people did this, where you lined up, okay, 2 and 2, X and X, and then X, X, 8. And you showed it like that. And you said these disappear, those disappear, because commutative property, right? We can move the order of addition, commutative property. I don't know how that got way high up there, but I cannot tap that high on the screen. Come back down here, dude. Maybe he's stuck up there. Dude. Now, there were a lot of interesting answers on this one, so take a second to read what you wrote. And by that I mean take a minute. If you didn't write anything, analyze what you would write. Some people said some things, like if it doesn't have a denominator of 10, it can't terminate. Well, that's not true. A denominator of 10 for sure will terminate. But some of you made some really lofty statements about oh yeah, the only way things terminate is this, or the only way things repeat is if they have a denominator of 9 or 11. Or the only things that repeat are denominators of 3, which actually that can repeat or not repeat. Same with almost any denominator. Right, so actually 7 denominator, you can't even say any number with a denominator of 7 has to repeat. Because, would that repeat? No. So be very cautious making broad statements. What we're trying to say here is for this fraction, what does it do? Another, don't necessarily trust your calculator question. So Zevel starts doing this, right? And a couple people set up their division backwards. Remember, numerator inside. So Zevel's yeah, that should be far enough. Starts working it. How many 7s in 30?
4.
Remainder of?
2.
Drop down your 0. Drop down your 0. Someone's all right, well, it's not repeating, right? All different numbers. Can't stop there. Five? 35, right? I'm going to bring this over here just so it's on the same screen. Drop down 0, 50. 7, 49. Drop down to 0, 1, 1. All right, Zevel's dude, I'm out, right? We're not repeating. Except then, we get back to the number we started with. Right? We actually started with 30. hold up. Here's the thing to realize. The number I get back to tells me everything between them will loop. So if I got back to like a 60, not everything's going to repeat. But because I got back to a 30, everything repeats. In that order, the whole time forever. Every seventh fraction with a denominator less than 7 creates a repeating decimal. Almost one of the only ones where that, well, no, I can't even make that. Be careful with broad statements, right? But sevenths have a really cool pattern for repeating. It is essentially the multiples of 7 used in the digits. We were really good on these. Just make sure that you had enough in your explanation. You can't just say, like, because it does. Or, like, because when you multiply negative 3 times negative, like, you can't just say what it already shows you. You have to explain beyond that. Oh, that check was for Hugh. Sorry. That check is actually for Hugh. It's always below, but I must have did it right quick. So normally, and what I forgot on your paper that would make sense, I use question marks for 2 different reasons. I use a question mark when I don't understand what you wrote, like, hey, just I need some clarification, I'm confused. Not necessarily that you did something wrong, just like I'm confused. Actually, in one of your papers, I had written I'm confused and I scratched it out because I realized the method that you were using to multiply, was it you? So, the other reason I'll put a question mark on your test is to indicate you never answered the question or never got to it. Just so I know the first time through, you didn't get to it. So those of you who didn't finish, on your back paper, there's probably some question marks. Here's what we're going to do right now. I would like you, for Chapter 2 and Chapter 3 separately, to decide what grade you would give yourself. So, if you weren't finished, you got to be a little introspective and decide the questions I didn't get to, was it just time, or did I not know how to do them? I reserve the right to assign the grade that I believe you deserve. I'm just curious, how you guys feel you did, and because we didn't all get finished. So, take a minute, get that done, then the paper you wrote on today, staple that on top, and turn it back in. Chapter 2 grade goes at the top of Chapter 2 by your name. Chapter 3 grade, top of Chapter 3 test by your name. Progressing, mastery, exemplary, not progressing, whatever. Then, once you get your paper you wrote on today stapled on top, turned in, you're good to go. Well, I'll give them back to you Monday. What? Or you can work on AO extensions. I mean, you can have it back. But I just want to see what grade you guys will give yourself. Okay, you'll get that back. Okay. Don't freak out. This is not going in math like right now.
I just want to do this and not got my test.
No. Wait, do we turn in this extra piece of paper?
On top, staple on top. Am I out of staples? Okay. You just didn't sound like a staple. Maybe you're just so strong.
It's divinely odd.
We don't turn in papers all that often. I think that's why. All right, guys. Then you got to get out of here pretty quickly because we are over time. So please jet on out of here.